before we go, I just want to remind you of our breaking news this hour. You're looking at live pictures of Jerusalem. Israeli police are saying that at least 7 Israelis have been injured in an attack near Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank city of Bethlehem. These are the latest pictures that we are getting. They're reporting at least 3 Palestinians have been killed. And we'll bring you the latest information as we get it at the top of the hour. That's it from me, Marlene Saeed, for this news hour.
As the situation in Gaza escalates, we bring you expert views and analysis.
This is not a conventional war between 2 armies or between 2 states. This is asymmetrical war.
The Israeli army does not purposely go to kill children. Unfortunately, children can be the casualties of war.
While the attacks were going on in real time, we were on the phone to the Israeli army begging them to call off their attacks.
This government is not legitimate to start a war and to send our children to their death.
There will be no peace without justice for Palestinians.
Stay with us for the latest developments on Al Jazeera.
The U.S. president maintains that Hamas is operating from Gaza's largest hospital without providing evidence. Israeli forces are still inside the compound.
And they've given the doctors, and I'm told, the doctors and nurses and the personnel an opportunity to get out of harm's way.
I'm Marlene Saeed. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha. Also coming up. After more than a month, fuel is finally allowed into the Strip, but none is allowed to go into hospitals where it's desperately needed. The United Nations Security Council passes a resolution calling for a temporary halt to fighting to allow aid into Gaza. We begin in Gaza, where Israel's military has raided Al-Shifa Hospital buildings for a second time. Soldiers, supported by tanks, remain inside the compound after storming it on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Israel's relentless bombing is continuing across the Strip. You're looking at live pictures there off the Gaza Strip. You can see that a recent explosion has just taken place with that huge plume of grey smoke. The time there is just gone 1 minute past 10 in the morning. Dozens of people have reportedly been killed in an airstrike on central Gaza. The south, where thousands of Palestinians have fled for safety, has also been under attack. Michael Apple has this report.
Israeli troops, supported by tanks, are conducting operations inside Gaza's largest hospital. Their movements can be seen in this Israeli drone footage. Hundreds of patients line Al-Shifa's corridors, while thousands more Palestinians are sheltering within the complex.
And when our troops open this,
Israel has insisted the hospital is being used as a Hamas command center, releasing this video claiming its soldiers uncovered items belonging to Hamas. These images cannot be independently verified. Hamas denies using the hospital as a base, calling it a lie to justify Israel's destruction of Gaza's medical infrastructure.
It is a civilian hospital. There is no any member of Hamas in Sefa Hospital. There is no any military activity in Shifa. There is anything happened when they entered the hospital. All what happened, it is around the hospital, but inside the hospital, all of the people in the hospital are civilians.
Israeli soldiers were said to be interrogating doctors and medical staff. No one was allowed to leave.
It's a complete blockade on the Al-Shifa medical complex. No one can go anywhere. No one can move between buildings of the complex. This doctor is trying his best to rescue the young girl. She's a victim of the Israeli bombardment.
Al-Shifa's emergency director says the situation is desperate.
They are in every building of the hospital, every place, everywhere the Israeli occupation forces are there, and people are terrorized and horrified because of the current situation. The situation is bad. Women, children, medical teams are suffering.
International humanitarian law protects hospitals. But yet, they're at the front line of this war, pushing the healthcare system to the brink of collapse. Mike Leppel, Al Jazeera.
Well, our correspondents are following the story across the region. In a moment, we will speak to Rory Challens, who's in occupied East Jerusalem. First, let's go to Hani Mahmoud, who is in southern Gaza, in Khan Yunis. Hani, so firstly, bring us up to date with the Israeli raid at Al-Shifa Hospital. Do we know anything about the fate of the staff there and the patients there?
All right, well, not only the situations at the hospital are catastrophic and constitute a war crime, but it is surrounded by huge intelligence failure, as the claim of the Israeli military that they will go in and find Hamas command center and tunnels and weapons that are used by Hamas elements to operate, to just stay away from that failure. What the Israeli military is doing in reaction, that just causing a huge deal of damage and destruction to the buildings of the hospital, going from building to building, interrogating staff members of the Al-Shifa Hospital, the medical team, evacuees and injuries as well. There are some 200 individuals, vast majority of them are evacuees and from the medical team, whose fate is unknown to anyone as of this moment. Just a little over 24 hours of the raid, and nothing substantial about why did it happen and where are the evidence that were found by the Israeli military. Unfortunately, the situations are still unclear. There is uncertainty about the fate of those 200 individuals inside the hospital. What we know, they were rounded up, blindfolded, were stripped off their clothes, and were grouped inside the courtyard of the hospital. Now, there is a growing fear among Palestinians in the Gaza Strip that this scenario is going to be repeated elsewhere. We know, as in the past 12 hours, Khan Yunis, eastern side of city of Khan Yunis, has been repeatedly targeted. The residents of the eastern side of Khan Yunis were ordered by the Israeli military through dropped leaflets to evacuate and leave the eastern side of Khan Yunis. So there's this concern and fear that what is happening in Gaza is going to be expanded to the southern part, which proved a point of many evacuees. They said there's no safe place in Gaza. The southern part is supposed to be safe, but it's not, as there's a growing airstrikes, a growing raids on it. And now the residents are asking to evacuate to the western side of the city of Khan Yunis.
Okay, Hani, just stay with us. I want to get more on the humanitarian situation in the south. First, let's go to Rory Challens, who is in occupied East Jerusalem. Rory, I wanted to know what exactly has been said, what kind of a reaction has there been to the raids, these Israeli raids on Al-Shifa Hospital? The military have provided some footage, but it's unverified, of some sort of activity inside the hospital. But like I said, there hasn't been any concrete evidence.
Yeah, I think there's some concern within, certainly if you're watching kind of Israeli media, Israeli TV channels, news channels that lean to the right, and following newspapers that lean to the right, there's concern that the evidence, so-called evidence, that the Israeli military has provided so far for Hamas activity inside Shifa Hospital is pretty thin, and that's being acknowledged on the TV channels, that a few bags of rusty Kalashnikovs and that sort of thing is not really going to cut it. That's not the evidence of nerve centers, hubs, Hamas command and control, etc., that the Israeli military, the Israeli government has been leading people here to believe is going on under Shifa Hospital. Now, that's not to say that people here don't believe that has been going on, but the media appraisal of this is that, well, we're going to have to see a bit more to be fully convinced, for this to be convincing. And for that, they say the army, the military needs to be given more time. They're essentially saying, look, don't rush. This is something that's going to take a bit of duration to produce. So let's give the army time to actually fully investigate and come up with something that we will think of as more convincing.
Right. And Rory, I believe there's been an incident this morning. Israeli police saying that there's been a shooting near a checkpoint between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. What more do you know?
Yes, this happened 9 a.m. local time. That's 7 a.m. GMT, so not very long ago at all. So information is still coming in on this. What we have has come from the Israeli police. This incident took place at Tunnel Checkpoint, which is south of Jerusalem. A bit of context here: Tunnel Checkpoint is a major checkpoint for settlers in and around the Hebron era to pass backwards and forwards to Jerusalem. It's also the second main checkpoint to get in and out of Bethlehem. The police say that there were 3 attackers who opened fire on this checkpoint this morning. Varying degrees in terms of numbers for injured. We've heard 7. There might be up to 20 lightly injured. The police are saying that the attackers were all killed. They are dead, but there are ongoing security operations in the area, conducting sweeps and supplementary operations. That's essentially what we know at the moment. I'm sure there'll be more information coming in soon.
OK, thank you for that. Rory Challens there for us in occupied East Jerusalem. A truckload of fuel has entered Gaza for the first time since the start of the war. The UN has accused Israel of using fuel as a weapon of war since the beginning of the conflict. After more than a month, Israel has allowed a single truck carrying about 24,000 litres of diesel to enter Gaza through the Rafah crossing. But the fuel is only meant for UN trucks to distribute aid and not for use in hospitals or other critical civilian needs. The UN Refugee Agency says it needs 160,000 litres of fuel every day for its basic humanitarian work. Well, the head of UNRWA has warned that by the end of Wednesday, around 70% of the population of Gaza will be without clean water and without fuel. Desalination plants, generators and pumping stations will have stopped working, and the fuel crisis has, of course, hit hospitals the hardest. Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, needs up to 10,000 litres of fuel per day and was forced to suspend services due to lack of fuel. We've also heard from telecommunication companies. They're expected to run out of fuel today, Thursday, leading to serious network breakdowns. Let's go back to Hani Mahmoud, who is in Khan Yunis inside the Gaza Strip. So such a small amount of fuel that has entered into Gaza, this is going to cause real problems, isn't it, in the Gaza Strip?
Yes, indeed. This is only a drop in the ocean of Gaza daily needs of fuel. Now, as far as we know, fuel has become an essential lifeline for hospitals and for all the service facilities in the Gaza Strip. Take, for example, hospitals, and due to a shortage of fuel and no drop of fuel went to a Sefa Hospital, led to a complete outage of power, causing a huge problem to incubators for babies. Now, across the Gaza Strip, particularly in the southern part, we have major hospital here like Nasser Hospital, where we're reporting it from, and there's the European hospital, and there's other mid-sized hospital in the southern part. Also warning that by the end of the day or early morning, they will run completely out of fuel and they won't have any of the services available for people. The amount of fuel is only led because the UN was unable and has suspended all of its operations of delivering aid to Gaza in the southern part, because the trucks had no fuel to move. So there was a need and there was a precondition that amount of fuel is only going to the United Nations relief work, particularly the trucks that are going to take those aid and deliver them, nothing else. No mention of hospitals, no mention of bakeries, no mention of other service facilities in the Gaza Strip. Not only it's causing a problem for hospital, but also we have, for example, the telecommunications company. We have PAL Tele Group warned that by the end of the day today, Gaza completely will go off the grid. No communication services whatsoever, no internet connection whatsoever, because there are no fuel to power the power generators and to generate enough electricity to recharge the batteries at major major communication divisions across the Gaza Strip. So what we're seeing is a complete shutdown in everything, not only in healthcare system, but also in other essential services such as communications.
Hani Mahmoud there for us in Khan Yunis. Thank you.